Abraham Garbabahai Tejasmina Badikamastlu Ma Yishabahai. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about awareness, which is the first step in the A.L.I.G.N method, which is a framework that I've been creating and developing for the last few years on identity and belief transformation. And check out that slide. Check it out. Ooh, that's a cool title, man. It looks so good. A, awareness. This is the foundation. Noticing what you think, what you feel, how you react without judgment. There are other letters that we'll get into later, but this is a step-by-step process. And it all starts with awareness. Okay. Awareness alone doesn't help us initiate change and lasting transformation, but it is the foundation which everything else comes from. Because if we're unaware of what things are driving our behavior, we cannot consciously choose to change our behavior. We have to become aware of a limiting belief, of a pattern, our conditioning, our trauma. And then we have to be able to understand what that is and where it came from. And then we have to be able to heal from it and choose if we want to change. Okay. So the first step in the A.L.I.G.N method is awareness. We don't see reality as it is. We see it through our lens. And our lens is, whether you call it conditioning, programming, or your beliefs, these are the things that you feel and believe to be the truth about how the world is and how you are and how people are and how things work and what is true. So even if it is not the absolute truth, it is how you see it. Okay. So there is reality, which is the same for everybody, which is the same thing, which is basically that there is this existence and things are always happening. Okay. I don't know how to sum it up any better than that. All right. And then there is our view of it, our perspective, our worldview, how we interpret these events that are happening, past, present, and future. All right. So what we believe reality to be is just our personal narrative and interpretation based on our conditioning, our upbringing, our specific developmental traumas and experiences and education and religious beliefs and parental, whatever. Usually what happens is whatever your parents or caregivers, whatever they believe, you kind of just absorb that. Okay, that's why parenting is such an important thing in this world. Anyway, beliefs are what direct our attention. If we have certain beliefs, most likely what will happen is we will look for confirmation in reality that proves what we believe is true. That gives us psychological stability, even if it is not ideal. That means if you have a limiting belief that is negative and detrimental and not giving you the life that you want, it doesn't matter if that negative belief or limiting belief is true or not. You will look for evidence to prove to yourself that it's true until you become aware and conscious and recognize, hey, this is a limiting belief that I picked up from, maybe your mother or your father or your conditioning or a past experience. And until you become aware of that, where you picked that up, you're not going to be able to heal from it and change your behavior and change your life. So it's really important to understand our beliefs create this lens from which we view reality. And until we start to examine and become aware of where our beliefs came from and start to question some of those beliefs, we will continue down the same path. Okay? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Change is a choice. Whenever you're ready to make it, you have to start with awareness. You have to start with some practices that allow you to develop more self-reflection, which is not always easy, but it is possible. And it's a choice that you can choose. Past experiences, like we talked about, conditioning, whether it's culture, school, religion, media, society, depending on where you grew up, a lot of influences. Okay, there's a lot of outside influences that shape what we believe to be true, whether it's government and politics and media, your parents, your culture, your peers, your family, your school, your education, your religion. All of these things are just little things that are, little conditioning, programming, beliefs that your seeds that are being planted in your head as you grow from baby up on through adulthood. And until you can start to consciously ask, where did my beliefs come from? You will continue to see from those programs. We'll call them programs because That's a word that's kind of commonly used, but you could say it's conditioning. Think about air conditioning. My air conditioner is on right here, right now. There's a certain temperature that's set by the thermostat of what we want the temperature to be. And then when the temperature gets too high or too low, air conditioning kicks on and either cools it or heats it up. So, based on what your beliefs are, that's what certain things can do. Certain religions can say, hey, this is how you should behave based on what we believe to be morally right and wrong. It's a guidance for behavior. Psychology is a similar framework of how people should try to think and analyze themselves for more positive behavior. Philosophy is a way to start to open your mind and question things. Okay, there's different frameworks. If you want to go deeper into it, there's stuff like epistemology and theology and all these various religions and schools of thought. And you can dive into that and start to try to figure out where you adopted your beliefs from. But usually, what I would suggest is just start with a simple practice like meditation and journaling. I'll attach a PDF for a belief excavation worksheet that I created so you can start trying to look at some of your beliefs if you're ready to do that. And I do coaching around this stuff. So if anybody's interested and they want some coaching, feel free. I'll put another link down there for a Calendly invite and you can sign up for a one-on-one session with me. So your mind creates your experience, not reality itself. There's reality and the events that happen in existence. And then there's our interpretation of those events, what we believe those events mean. So that means one event could happen and two people could look at it and have completely different experiences. And usually what that depends on is their pre-existing beliefs, traumas, conditioning. Okay. So for example, let's say there is a relationship and I guess we'll have to have two different relationships. So there's two different relationships, a guy and a girl over here and a guy and a girl over here. And both of the girlfriends are like, hey, let's go out tonight. And they both go out and both of their phones die. And the two guys are hanging out. And one of the guys has been cheated on in his past and the other one hasn't. So the one who's been cheated on, when he's not getting messages from his girlfriend, thinks she's out cheating on him. And the other one is like, nah, dude, her phone's probably dead, whatever. And doesn't worry about it. So there's two different interpretations of the same exact event that are happening. And this is usually, like I said, based on your pre-existing beliefs, experiences, traumas, things like that. I use the example of this as a relationship. This could also be true based on how you view anything in reality, how you view the news. If the news is on and there's certain things that they're talking about that are disturbing to you, it's probably because of your pre-existing beliefs and traumas and what you believe to be true about reality. And the news is telling you one thing, and whether it confirms your reality or it shakes you because you don't want to believe what that narrative is telling you, that's called cognitive dissonance. Okay. So depending on how you have been conditioned and what you believe to be true, anything in reality can either harmonize with your worldview or trigger you and cause something called cognitive dissonance, which means there's not a resonance on what you're seeing and what you believe to be true. So it's important to start to excavate some of our beliefs so that we can be more aware, so that we can understand even these news programming television channels. Did you hear the words I said in there? News programming television channels are sharing a narrative, a story, in which they are the author or authority telling you what the reality is. And it's up to you to be able to sit and say, is this the truth or is this the narrative that they are trying to convince me of? So what I would suggest, so that you don't let your traumas, your past experiences, your developmental conditioning, which you have adopted from society, your parents, the news, government, culture, religion, all of these things have conditioned you to believe a certain version of reality to be the truth. And it's up to you, the individual, to sit with yourself and to analyze your own beliefs and say, what is it that I believe to be true? I understand that all these different people have different experiences and have different beliefs, and then they see the world in different ways. There might be, whatever it is, 8 billion people in the world. That means there's 8 billion different perspectives of reality just through humans, let alone if we want to get into the consciousness of animals, plants, things like that. So my suggestion is to start to become more aware of where your beliefs came from. Much of what you will discover they're not your beliefs. They're just beliefs that you picked up from, like I've said, parents, culture, teachers, media, society, religion, politics. And if you hold on and cling to these beliefs, they can cause limitation, fear, paranoia. This is usually what happens when we are afraid to excavate our own beliefs because it challenges our sense of stability psychologically. As humans, we search for safety. We want to be able to feel like we can survive and we have a clear understanding of how things operate in the world so that we can optimize our health and our survival and our ability to reproduce. So it's important to analyze our own beliefs so that we can live in harmony with truth and view reality more clearly so that we can make the most aligned and conscious choices and not be swayed and pulled and have our behavior dictated by pre-existing, conditioned, limited beliefs. Dear Jesus, Buddha, Shiva, all the greats, Ganesh, help us, Lord. Help us see clearly, please. We need a little help down here. Anyway, I'm going way off the slides, but I just said it because I'm on a roll. So the big shift, you're not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. When you start to practice something like meditation or mindfulness, you might experience something called the observer or the witness or pure consciousness. It is the you beyond your limited identity, your little ego, okay? Your little s self. There's our capital S self, which is the being within all things. And then there's the lower s self, which is the little ego, the little identity, this version of Dustin. All right. So Dustin is just one fragmentation of the infinite consciousness that is all things. What the fuck? Where'd you get that weed, bro? Anyway, I'm kidding. I don't do drugs anymore. Jay Grudev. Thank you, Lord. Anyway, observe your thoughts and you realize you are not them. Through practices like meditation and mindfulness, you can start to just observe the thoughts as they come, like you're sitting outside watching the clouds go by. And you don't have to try to reach up there and grab the clouds and attach to the clouds because that gives you stability. You're not your thoughts. You're not your mind. You're not your feelings. Okay? If you go to the core of it, you are consciousness itself. You are awareness itself. That is the root of identity and belief transformation work because that is the purest truth, the absolute truth. When we're trying to find what is the real, the reality, the truth, from what I've come to experience, from my own existence, from my own practices, from my own study and knowledge and research, it's that we are awareness having an experience, okay? And again, I don't want to try to push or force any indoctrinating beliefs onto people. I want to try to help people remove and shed false limiting beliefs and false identities and help people understand the root of who we are, which I believe to be, like I've said, there's different frameworks and perspectives and worldviews and philosophies and religions. And I think the core truth is that there is one truth. There's many ways to seeing it. And I believe it is that we are all this, whether you call it God, the universe, nature, consciousness, I believe they're all synonymous, trying to explain and point to the same thing, which is awareness. You are that. Think about that quote in the Bible. Be still and know that I am God. If that is not an instruction for meditation, in realizing your own divinity, your own unity, I don't know what else would explain it any more simply. Aham Brahmasmi, I am totality. Tattvamasi, thou art that, which means you are that. You are that consciousness. You are God. I am God. We are all that unity, oneness, experiencing itself through various forms. Okay? Anyway, this is some pretty deep stuff. Yeah, we're starting with the highest first, folks. It starts with awareness. It starts with awareness because until you are in alignment with your true self, all other behavior will just be an attempt to heal and satisfy base desires that come from limiting beliefs or trauma. Until you can align with your truest self, which is recognizing your own divinity, you will just be acting out scripts and patterns that are not yours. You will be playing out conditioning from your parents, peers, culture, society, media, religion, politics. So I suggest awareness as the first practice so that you have more conscious choice and you can recognize your own conditioning. And then ask yourself, if I'm conscious of these limitations, do I want to allow them to affect my life anymore? And if you don't, you have a choice. You can choose to change. And it might not happen overnight. You might have to put in a little effort consistently. But I promise you, one moment of pure awareness will be like a door opening to something that you have always known, but you haven't had enough evidence or proof of. And when you have an experience of pure awareness or God realization, whatever it might be, that will lead you on a path. And if you continuously surrender to awareness, to the higher good, to God, to the universe, to nature, and ask for that guidance from within, you will be led, and it will lead you to certain levels of understanding. So I strongly suggest you have patience, but you apply these practices for awareness. Okay, we'll talk about all the other steps later, but it all starts with awareness. All right, next slide. What is awareness? Observing your inner world. Like I just said, your thoughts, your emotions, beliefs, reactions. Instead of reacting automatically, you choose to respond consciously. Without awareness, your thoughts control you, your beliefs run your life, you react unconsciously, patterns repeat endlessly. With awareness, you observe your thoughts, you question your beliefs, you respond consciously, and you create new patterns. Awareness creates choice, and choice creates freedom. Again, we talked about where all these different frameworks and beliefs come from: family, culture, society, religion, personal experience, conditioning from your environment. Here's a really cool slide that shows how our worldview and beliefs were created developmentally in your childhood programming. A lot of what we believe comes from our parents in the age between 0 and 7. We're unconscious and we're just picking up all these beliefs, absorbing all these beliefs from our experience. And usually that comes from our caregivers, our parents, our peers. As we get into our teen years, usually peers have more of an influence than our parents. So it's important to figure out who you're hanging out with. This is where media starts to have an effect. If you're always on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or watching different movies, whatever it might be, we see what gets rewarded in society, and then we want to try to emulate that. We see the cool kid, and we want to try to be like them. We see the person who we admire, and we want to try to be like them. So we develop certain behaviors and beliefs about ourselves based on others. It's relational, this experience. Ages 18 to 25, if you have certain traumatic experiences, young adulthood, when you're just coming into your own self, when you're developing autonomy and freedom to choose your own way, and you're recognizing where some of your beliefs might have come from, and you're recognizing maybe you don't want to be like mom and dad as much. Maybe you want to be different than how you've been raised. And this is where sometimes rebellion comes in. And this is where freedom of choice comes in. And this is sometimes where you can have traumatic experiences determining and shaping your behavior. If you haven't healed and processed things, this is where drugs, alcohol, and different behaviors can start to have negative impacts on your life. Okay, age 25, once our brains are fully developed, we're pretty much running on an autopilot unless we become aware. We're pretty much a walking puzzle of programmed and conditioned beliefs that we adopted over time. And until our brain is fully developed and conscious, and we start to develop some of these practices like meditation, self-reflection, mindfulness, journaling, those limiting beliefs, programs, conditioning will continue to drive our behavior. So it's important that we have to recognize the lens that we see reality through was picked up and conditioned We have to be able to look and examine where our beliefs came from, because that will determine our future. And if we want conscious choice in our future, or if we want to just go down a scripted path that has been authored by someone other than you, if that's what you want, good luck. But I promise, conscious choice, taking responsibility for yourself and your own actions, freeing yourself from the conditions and the limitations that have been picked up unconsciously by you over the course of your life. Challenge those beliefs that you think you have. Examine them, free of judgment, and just try to become more aware and more conscious of your own self. Okay, like we talked about, different ways to build awareness: meditation, journaling, observing your thoughts, body awareness, slowing down, and asking better questions. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I wish you all the best. Again, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment below. Next video we'll be going through the A.L.I.G.N method, letter L for locate, talking about locating some of those limiting beliefs and the practices that we can start to develop so that we can do that. Okay. What I would suggest for you, if you're interested in learning more, check out the other videos. I have other videos on identity and belief transformation, meditation, things like that, different habits you can implement to gain more self-awareness. Also, I do coaching. If you want some coaching one-on-one, feel free, link below, sign up for a session. I wish you the best. God bless. Good luck. And try to, go be more aware. All right. See you later.